Hidden beneath the silent forests and cold waves of Lake Superior lies one of the oldest and most baffling archaeological mysteries in North America. Long before Columbus, long before the tribes we know today, and long before written history touched the Great Lakes, someone was mining pure, flawless copper on a scale that defies explanation. Who were they? Where did they go? And why did they leave no trace? In this documentary, we explore the ancient copper mines of Michigan, a story of lost civilizations, impossible engineering, and secrets that may change everything we know about early human history. The copper that shouldn't exist. The northernmost edge of Michigan's Upper Peninsula is a land carved by ice, washed by storms, and shaped by time. The ancient Ojibwe and Menominee tribes called it a place of spirits, power, and creation, a region where the natural world seemed older, deeper, and more watchful than anywhere else. But what archaeologists discovered in the 19th century was something even more astonishing. Tens of thousands of ancient mine pits, scattered across Isle Royale and the Keweenaw Peninsula, each one carved into solid bedrock. They were not the remnants of random geological activity. They were man-made, and they were impossibly old. When early explorers first mapped the region, they noticed something unusual. Enormous boulders weighing several tons had been moved or split open. Hammerstones, tools clearly used to pound metal from rock, were found everywhere, often in huge piles, as if left behind in haste. Even more mysterious were the great quantities of pure, 99% copper that had been removed, but not found anywhere nearby. By the mid-1900s, surveyors estimated that ancient miners had extracted over 500,000 tons of pure copper. This wasn't a small tribal operation. This was industrial-scale mining. But here was the real puzzle. The technology required to extract that much copper didn't match any known North American civilization. Not the Ojibwe, not the Adena, not the Hopewell, not the Mississippians. No tribe in the region had any oral tradition describing such massive mining activity. Their legends spoke of thunderers, ancient beings who shaped the land, but nothing that hinted at humans mining copper in enormous quantities. Archaeologists studying the pits found that the miners used fire setting, a method where intense heat is applied to rock and then rapidly cooled with water to fracture it. This technique was known in the Mediterranean Bronze Age civilizations thousands of miles away, but there was no record of it being practiced in prehistoric North America. Even more confusing, no smelting furnaces were found. Whoever mined the copper seemed to want it in raw, pure form, a peculiar choice since most ancient cultures smelted metals for tools or ornaments. By the late 1800s, the mystery deepened further when researchers realized something astonishing. The missing copper lined up perfectly with the explosive rise of the Bronze Age across Europe and the Middle East, roughly 3000 to 1200 BCE. During this period, the Old World saw a massive increase in bronze weapons, helmets, sculptures, ship fittings, and ceremonial artifacts. But the known mines of Europe couldn't supply enough copper to explain the archaeological record. Something didn't add up. Could it be that the Great Lakes, thousands of years before Columbus, were part of a global trade network? Could ancient sailors from the Minoan or Phoenician civilizations have crossed the Atlantic, mined the copper, and returned home? Mainstream archaeology says no, but the missing copper says yes. The numbers, the timelines, and the purity of Michigan copper match almost too perfectly. And then there were the pits themselves, some up to 20 feet deep, others stretching across entire ridges. Many had wooden platforms and scaffolding preserved in the oxygen-poor soil, carbon dated to around 3,000 to 6,000 years old. That meant the mining occurred during a period when no known North American civilization possessed the population, resources, or maritime ability to move that much material. As researchers dug deeper, they made an unsettling observation. The miners seemed to have vanished. The tools were left behind, as if dropped mid-task. The mines were suddenly abandoned. No burial sites, no settlements, no temples, no pottery. Nothing that would normally accompany an ancient culture capable of such enormous work. Something happened. Something large. Something we still don't understand. The ancient copper mines of Michigan were not just an archaeological curiosity. They were a clue, a whisper from a forgotten time. And the more scientists studied them, the stranger the mystery became. Because if North America had once hosted a civilization capable of shipping 500,000 tons of copper across oceans, then the story of human history is far more complex and far more ancient than we ever imagined. The miners who vanished. The mystery of Michigan's ancient copper mines deepens when we ask a simple question: who were the miners? The answer, even today, is unsettling, because no known civilization in North America fits the scale, ability, or timeline of the mining that took place in the Upper Peninsula. Archaeologists studying the Quinault Peninsula found more than 10,000 ancient mine pits, some large enough to require organized labor, advanced planning, and long-term occupation. Yet the miners left behind no living quarters, no pottery, no tools beyond hammerstones, and no evidence of daily life. It was as if a workforce had arrived from nowhere, mined for centuries, and then disappeared back into the shadows of history. The Ojibwe tribes living in the region when Europeans arrived had no memory of such activity. They respected copper and used small quantities for ornaments and tools, but they were clear they were not the ones who dug the old pits. Tribal elders spoke of the first people, a mysterious group said to have lived long before their ancestors. These beings, according to oral tradition, were skilled artisans who worked with stone and metal and vanished suddenly. Yet no physical trace of them remained. To understand just how strange this is, imagine discovering thousands of coal mines in a remote forest, but no roads, no villages, no cemeteries, no trash pits, no farming tools, no signs of birth or death. Just the mines. That is exactly what archaeologists found across Michigan's northern wilderness. The pits themselves reveal a remarkable level of organization. Many were excavated straight into bedrock, with evidence of fire setting used to weaken the stone. Wooden ladders and platforms, some preserved in the cold, wet soil, were carbon dated to between 3,000 and 6,000 years old. This time period aligns with the early Bronze Age in Europe and the Middle East, a time when civilizations like the Minoans and Egyptians were expanding rapidly and demanding enormous quantities of bronze. Bronze, of course, requires one essential ingredient: copper. But there was a problem. The known copper mines of Europe couldn't account for the flood of bronze weapons, tools, and artifacts found in Old World archaeological sites. The numbers simply didn't match. Too much bronze existed for the amount of copper mined locally. That left scientists with two options. Either ancient European miners massively underreported their activities, or the copper came from somewhere else. This is where Michigan enters the story. The copper found in the Upper Peninsula is nearly 99% pure, far purer than most sources found in Europe or Asia. When researchers examined Bronze Age artifacts from the Old World, some showed chemical signatures suspiciously similar to Great Lakes copper. Not identical enough to draw a definitive line, but close enough to raise eyebrows. If the copper of Michigan was exported thousands of years before Columbus, workforce, perhaps even a foreign expedition, who mined copper seasonally and returned home. If true, this would explain why there are no settlements or cultural artifacts nearby. But then the greatest question of all arises: why did they stop? Around 1200 BCE, the ancient copper mines fell silent. No new pits were created. No old pits were expanded. Whoever the miners were, they vanished without a trace. This timeline coincides eerily with the late Bronze Age collapse, the sudden downfall of major civilizations across the Mediterranean, including the Mycenaeans, Hittites, and possibly the Minoans. A mysterious chain reaction devastated trade networks, cities, and empires. Shipping collapsed, long-distance expeditions ceased, writing systems disappeared. If Michigan copper was feeding the old world, then the collapse of those civilizations would have instantly ended the demand and the transoceanic voyages required to obtain it. The miners of Michigan didn't drift into the forest, leaving their tools behind. They stopped because the world that needed their copper fell apart. Their ships no longer sailed. Their leaders no longer ruled. Their ports no longer stood. Their absence left the Upper Peninsula quiet once again, the mine pits filling with water and leaves, slowly hiding the greatest mining operation of prehistoric North America. To this day, scholars cannot explain how a civilization capable of extracting 500,000 tons of copper left no trace except the wounds that cut into the land. But the deeper we dig, the more we realize that history may be far older and far more interconnected than we ever imagined. Theories, controversies, and forbidden archaeology. From the moment archaeologists uncovered the ancient copper pits of Michigan, one burning question has fueled debate. Where did all the copper go? The answer, or rather, the lack of an answer, has birthed a storm of theories ranging from academic to downright forbidden. And as we peel back each layer, the mystery only grows darker and deeper. The mainstream view: local tribes, simple tools, limited extraction. Official archaeology insists the mining was done by indigenous tribes using stone hammers and wooden wedges. They argue it was a small-scale activity, stretched over thousands of years, enough time to produce the vast number of pits and removed copper. According to this interpretation, early native cultures simply gathered copper nodules near the surface and stopped when the easiest material was gone. But the problem emerges when we examine the scope. This explanation cannot account for over 10,000 pits across the region, evidence of deep, organized shafts up to 20 feet, the estimated 500,000 tons of missing copper, fire-setting technology matching Bronze Age mining, not tribal traditions, the absence of smelting equipment, the total lack of cultural remains. Even tribal historians themselves reject the idea that their ancestors carried out such massive operations. The oral traditions consistently describe copper use as modest, decorative, symbolic, and limited. Nothing suggests a continent-wide industrial enterprise. This means the mainstream explanation, although comfortable, doesn't align with the physical evidence. The mines don't just hint at a mystery, they demand one. The Bronze Age connection, a global puzzle piece. Among all possibilities, one theory refuses to die because the numbers fit almost too well. The missing Michigan copper matches the exploding demand of the Old World Bronze Age. Between 3000 and 1200 BCE, bronze became the super material of its time. Weapons, tools, armor, ships, decorative art, ritual objects. Civilizations like the Minoans, Egyptians, and Mycenaeans were expanding rapidly, and they needed unimaginable amounts of copper. Yet, archaeologists face an awkward gap. The known mines of the Mediterranean region do not produce enough copper to match the global quantity of Bronze Age artifacts discovered. Where did the rest come from? Some metallurgical studies show that a small percentage of Bronze Age tools carry isotopic fingerprints eerily similar to Great Lakes copper. Critics argue that the match isn't conclusive, and they're right, it isn't. But it's suspiciously close enough to raise the question: did ancient sailors cross the Atlantic? If so, they would have found one of the richest copper deposits on Earth, a resource so pure it didn't need smelting. Coastlines connected by water routes to the mines, massive deposits sitting near the surface. To a Bronze Age mariner, Michigan may have looked like a gold mine of the ancient world, except the treasure was copper. But the idea of transatlantic travel, thousands of years before Columbus, terrifies traditional historians. It requires rewriting everything we know about early navigation, trade routes, and cultural exchange. Yet archaeology keeps whispering the same possibility. Someone came to Michigan. Someone mined copper on an industrial scale. Someone left without a trace. The Minoan theory, masters of the sea. Of all ancient civilizations, the Minoans stand out as the most likely candidates. They were extraordinary sailors, dominating trade across the Mediterranean. Their ships carried tin, olive oil, precious stones, and metals across vast distances. But around 1500 BCE, something dramatic happened. Minoan civilization collapsed rapidly, a mystery in its own right. Some theorists propose a link. If Minoans traveled to Michigan, the Bronze Age collapse might have severed their trade routes, ending the copper expeditions overnight. Supporters of this theory point to Minoan maps showing lands far west of known territories, shipwreck remains with cargo from astonishing distances, similarities between Mediterranean and ancient American legends. But critics say, where is the pottery? Where are the inscriptions? The counter-argument is simple. Exploratory or extraction missions often leave minimal cultural artifacts. Modern mining camps leave almost nothing behind, especially temporary ones. A well-organized expedition could mine copper, load it onto ships, and vanish without leaving a ceramic cup behind. The Phoenician hypothesis, the world's first global traders. If any civilization could cross the Atlantic, it was the Phoenicians. Renowned for their purple dye, their trade networks, and their mastery of shipbuilding, they traveled further than any Mediterranean culture. Ancient texts mention voyages to lands beyond the Western Sea, places rich with metals. The Phoenicians used similar mining methods to those found in Michigan: fire-setting stone hammers, timber scaffolding, cooperative, disciplined labor teams. Sadly, the Phoenicians kept their trade routes secret. The location of their most valuable resources was never recorded publicly. Everything they knew died with them. Some researchers argue that Michigan's copper pits may have been among those guarded secrets. The lost civilization theory, America's forgotten builders. Perhaps the most controversial idea is that the miners were not foreigners at all, but a Native American civilization long lost to time. A people advanced, organized, and powerful enough to orchestrate massive mining operations. Some propose they were wiped out by a natural disaster. Others think they were absorbed into later tribes. Some believe they left the region intentionally, traveling south, perhaps forming part of the cultural foundation of early Mesoamerica. But the biggest problem with this theory is the absence of settlement evidence. A civilization capable of extracting 500,000 tons of copper would have left cities, agriculture, art, tools, and graves. No such traces have been found, unless they remain buried, or destroyed, or hidden beneath layers of forest and water. Forbidden archaeology. Why the mystery remains unsolved. Many researchers claim that the truth remains buried, not because it is unknown, but because it is uncomfortable. Admitting transoceanic contact thousands of years before Columbus disrupts too many academic foundations. Textbooks would need rewriting. Timelines would shift. The origins of Bronze Age technology would change. European and American prehistory would merge. For these reasons, some believe the Michigan copper mystery is intentionally downplayed, the evidence dismissed before it is examined. Whether or not this is true, the facts remain. The mines exist. The copper is missing, and no civilization we currently recognize can explain it. The truth, for now, remains out of reach. The modern mystery and what it means for human history. The forests of Michigan's Upper Peninsula are quiet today, broken only by the sound of wind through pine branches and the distant call of loons over Lake Superior. But beneath that peaceful landscape lies a secret. Thousands of ancient pits, scars cut into the earth by hands we cannot name. Though centuries have passed and vegetation now covers their edges, the unanswered questions burn hotter than ever. Because these mines are not simply archaeological oddities, they are clues that could reshape the story of humanity. Modern researchers, equipped with satellite mapping, LiDAR, and deep soil scanning, are uncovering patterns that earlier archaeologists could only dream of. LiDAR scans reveal networks of pits, trenches, and stepped terraces stretching for miles, organized in ways that resemble industrial zones more than primitive dig sites. Some pits are aligned with astronomical points, although whether this is intentional or coincidence remains debated. But the sheer density of mines tells one clear story. This was no small operation. To put things in perspective, consider how many people would be needed to extract 500,000 tons of copper. Even with primitive tools, such an endeavor points to a population in the tens of thousands working over many centuries. Yet where are the remains of such a population? No houses, no cemeteries, no storage pits, no signs of agriculture. How can a mining operation be so enormous, yet so invisible? Some believe the clues may be hidden beneath Lake Superior itself. Geological data shows that water levels were much lower during certain periods in prehistory. Entire stretches of land that are now underwater, including potential settlement zones, were once accessible. If an ancient civilization lived on these now submerged lands, rising water levels could have swallowed every trace of them. This is not speculation. It is supported by bathymetric studies showing underwater ridges, terraces, and possible construction outlines near Isle Royale. Others argue that erosion and glaciation erased the evidence. Michigan is a land shaped by glaciers. Their passing left behind moraines, scars, and soil upheaval capable of destroying ancient structures. If a civilization existed before the last major glacial shifts, their footprint could easily have been wiped clean. But many researchers suggest a simpler explanation. The miners did not live here. They came seasonally. They came purposefully. They came for copper, and copper alone. They camped lightly, left little behind, and returned across the sea or across the continent, taking their culture with them. This possibility opens the door to extraordinary conclusions. If the miners were outsiders, Minoans, Phoenicians, Atlanteans, or another unknown seafaring people, then North America was not isolated as historians claim. Instead, it may have been part of a vast ancient trade network, forgotten when the civilizations that maintained it collapsed. The implications are staggering. It means early humans were far more globalized than we imagine. It means ancient maps may hide truths beneath mythological names. It means contact between continents could have occurred thousands of years before our history books begin. Yet, for all this speculation, modern scientists remain cautious. They want evidence, hard, undeniable evidence, pottery, DNA, inscriptions, language, architecture. Without these, the academic world hesitates to rewrite the past. But mysteries often live in the shadows of what has not been found. And there are discoveries that defy dismissal. Hammerstones made from distant quarries, fire-broken bedrock that matches Mediterranean mining techniques, wooden platforms carbon-dated thousands of years earlier than expected. These are not anomalies, they are signposts. Then there is the copper itself, pure, untouched by smelting, identical to the metal found in many early Bronze Age artifacts. Its unique isotopic signature is not a perfect match in every case, but close enough in some to raise uncomfortable questions. In 2001, a team of metallurgists studied Bronze Age tools from Europe and reported that a small subset matched the chemical pattern of Lake Superior copper better than any known Old World source. Critics argued the sample was too small. Supporters argued that the match was impossible to ignore. This debate, scientific, emotional, as researchers probe deeper, strange theories emerge. Some suggest extraterrestrial involvement, pointing to the purity of the copper and a lack of cultural remnants. Others refer to Plato's writings on Atlantis, a technologically advanced society with an obsession for metals, destroyed in a cataclysm that ended the Bronze Age. While these ideas stretch the boundaries of mainstream science, they highlight one truth. The Michigan mines are so mysterious that even the most imaginative theories feel strangely plausible. But perhaps the most grounded explanation is still extraordinary. Humans, long before written history, were capable of oceanic travel, large-scale industry, and global trade. They were not primitive wanderers, but explorers, traders, engineers, and miners. Civilizations rose, traded with distant lands, and fell, leaving behind echoes instead of chronicles. In recent years, groups of independent researchers have called for deeper surveys, underwater archaeology, and genetic sampling in the region. They argue that if answers exist, they may lie in the deepest, most untouched pockets of the Upper Peninsula, or below the cold waters of Lake Superior. But official funding remains limited. The academic world fears controversy, and mainstream institutions rarely support theories that challenge the accepted timeline of human civilization. Yet the mystery endures, too big to ignore and too ancient to explain. Every pit, every hammerstone, every broken ledge of saw, copper-bearing rock is a message from the past, a message we are still learning to translate. One thing is certain, the ancient copper mines of Michigan are more than a footnote in archaeology. They are a reminder that human history is incomplete, that civilizations rise and fall, leaving behind puzzles that future generations must solve. And the truth, whatever it may be, is waiting, hidden beneath forests, buried beneath lakes, etched into the rocks of a forgotten world. The question is not whether the miners existed. The question is, how far did they travel? How advanced were they? How connected was the ancient world? And most importantly, what else have we forgotten? The ancient copper mines whisper their secrets, and one day we may finally hear them. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of America's greatest ancient mysteries. The copper mines of Michigan challenge everything we think we know about history, and the questions they raise are only the beginning. First, We think we can do all this. If you enjoyed this journey into the forgotten past, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who love mysteries and history, and subscribe to our channel for more documentary stories every week. Your support helps us uncover more hidden truths from around the world. Until next time, keep searching, because history is far stranger than we imagine.